Hi there, friends. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well myself, and I'm working on a project that I wanted you to come along with. So this is the Great Muffin Project, and my teacher and I have been working with a recipe. Have been working on a recipe, and this is from King Arthur. So this is supposed to be a very good muffin recipe, and it is. It has all the right ingredients, but upon trying, there's some things we didn't like about it. We are attempting to make a muffin that can be profitable, even if it's just a small profit margin. So far, at the diner, we've been using a cake mix that gives us profit, yeah. But we are looking to do a recipe that is quite healthy, especially because we serve seniors, and so this is a good recipe because as far as sugar is concerned, it contains only a cup of sugar, but we are attempting to make it even more healthy. See if we can add fruit that would, help us maybe eliminate some of that sugar, but so far the nutrition value is like per muffin, which is quite large. It contains 274 calories, 19 grams carb, fat is 15 grams, protein is 4 grams, sodium 254 milligrams, which means it's already a lot, but it's milligrams, so remember that. And the sugar comes to 12 grams per muffin. Okay, so my project is to get a good product using these ingredients. When we tried yesterday, we tried with 2 flours, and the all-purpose King Arthur flour gave us a product that was very tasty, but it gave us a biscuit consistency. Now, if you know anything about muffins, you know that we want a very soft, large, bursting with flavor and fruit. It's supposed to be soft, but not a cake consistency. So I'll grab some muffins that I got from BJ's, because that is the end product you should have in mind. But so far, we haven't been able to achieve it. And so we have all this variation of what to add. We can add grated apple, blueberries, bananas, raspberries, that kind of thing, yeah. And so today I'm going to be working with blueberries for some of my batches, and also Granny Smith apples that I'm going to grate and incorporate in the dough or in the batter. Yeah, so I want you to actually do this with me if you can pull some products and just work on this with me. Also, if you're watching and you have those family recipes that are not secrets that you'll be willing to share with me, I'm willing to experiment on all of them. So the BJ's muffins come in a pack of 6 at $6.99, yeah. If you look at the size, yeah, the guys have been eating them. If you look at the size, it makes you wonder how they produce this. Our muffin at school is also big. I'm not sure how many ounces. I was looking for an ice cream scoop, attempting to get the size we have in school, but this is still small. So for some of the batter, I will actually do 2 of these, yeah. I noticed that my ice cream scoops are the same size. This is about a 1/4 cup, so there's that, yeah. So this is what we are going for. If you notice, this actually has sugar on top, topping sugar, yeah, or sanding sugar, and they are very sticky on the top because of the quality. Now, I know that these muffins are made with cake mixes, yeah, and cake mixes can yield a good product, very fluffy, very full. Okay, so contains bleached wheat flour, malted barley, sugar, water, eggs, blueberries, soybean oil, modified food starch, leavening, which is baking powder, and soda, baking soda. actually is what they say they've used. That helps in making your product very airy, bubbly, you know. And the baking powder raises your product. Baking soda actually has to be introduced to a liquid, yeah, for it to activate, yeah. So many chemical reactions that you need to be aware of, and that is why everything has to be measured just right, so you don't overdo. Sometimes in an attempt to get a product like this, bakers have been known to overdo, right, to add too much baking powder, too much baking soda, but it has to be just right, yeah. And that is why we have all these food scientists. I know I'm talking too much and we need to get into this. Yeah, so also it has natural flavors, dairy, whey, milk, salt, xanthan gum. That is just for binding some of these ingredients that wouldn't otherwise bind. Look, the words here I can't even read, but it does seem like the products are safe, yeah. Now to do this, of course, I had to go an extra mile and got some cake mixes, and we are going to compare this in the end, because what is happening with the our like homemade or, you know, Dynamade muffins is that they don't rise the same way as that muffin I have shown you. I actually did show you the inside. For those who never buy muffins at this wholesale shop, you may not be familiar with the texture. This is what we are going for. It's oily, it's oily, it's soft, it's not really crumbly, it's well, it has muffin texture. You do see there's no crumb falling even if I agitate it. It's just soft and nice. And it's very flavorful, yeah. So to achieve that, we'll have to do some work, okay? So I'm going to also make some of these mixes and see what we achieve in the end. Will they compare to our homemade product? That is what we are actually working to get. And once we make that home product, are we going to be able to make a profit? Our muffins cost about $1.99. You can actually achieve that, but how much profit can you get? Yeah, so we're going to look into that. I'm using half portions, and that is why I have all these writings. So this is the portion to get 16 muffins from the base muffin recipe, and this is the portion to get half. So yesterday we did a full portion that yielded 12, not 16, and then we did half portion with the cake flour. We wanted to compare both. I'm sorry to report that with the cake flour, I didn't like the flavor as much. I could taste the corn flour, which I actually thought is a preservative, that was hitting the back of my mouth. So I didn't quite like it, but I'm still going to repeat that today and see if I will do something different. So we are going to start with the base recipe. The cake mixes I have that we will do later. Martha White, lemon, poppy seed. I have, of course, Betty Crocker blueberry recipe, and she has her blueberries packed here. I think they're packed in water to preserve. I have Betty Crocker cinnamon streusel. And I have this, which is a much more expensive brand, Krusty's, I think, and it's $3, I think, and 39. The Betty Crocker is $2.99, and I believe the Martha White was about $2, give or take. I must have chewed on my receipt or something. It's already 10 minutes. Guys, that was just introduction. I promise to not talk too much. We'll just be looking at the recipe and working on it, and just, you know, focus on that and see what product we get. Yeah, so like I said, we are starting with the base recipe, and I'm just going to show you as I weigh. We're going to have our recipe waiting here, and I'm going to document a lot, yeah, because I have to report these findings, even though I'm still going to do it in school, so that we get that result together and be able to work with it and have my teacher point out what I may need, what changes I may need to work on. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera around, and all I'm going to do is just prep and start mixing. This is a huge muffin tin, and like I use this jumbo cupcake liners, so that fits perfectly. And I'm hoping to get that rise that just comes, I'm hoping to get the muffin top, yeah. And this is the regular tins, and coincidentally this is also what we use in school, and this is how much bigger the jumbo cupcake liner is on top of my muffin tin. So I'm spreading this out because I want to only get 6 from my half mixture. Yeah, so I'm going to just very fast mise en place. This is cake flour that I already mise en place, and I'm going to add the rest of the stuff. So it's calling for 1 3/4 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon baking powder, and as usual when we measure and cut. Half teaspoon baking soda. I love that my baking soda has a place to cut off the extra. So most of the work is just on the mise en place. Half a teaspoon of fine salt. So all of this, I'm going to show you how I cost from, I haven't done the costing class yet, but from my lessons in Kenya, I can tell you how we cost. So this is 16 ounces. I need 4 ounces. So one stick is about 4 ounces. Yeah, because times 4 it's 16. So we are going to use that, and then so that is half a cup of sugar. The whole amount should be 3 eggs. Yeah, so I'm attempting to use 1.5. I can only achieve that through weighing. So my eggs are about 2 ounces. I'm going to look for the tiniest, or just beat my eggs and weigh. So if one whole egg, the size that we are using is 2 ounces, so that makes it 6 ounces for the whole lot. So what I need is 3 ounces. So that will be waiting there for me. And then we have sour cream. I'm going to weigh half a cup of sour cream. One teaspoon, for those who are wondering, is usually 5 ml, and a lot of people think half a teaspoon is think a tablespoon is 2 teaspoons, but that's not true, because a tablespoonful, this contains 15 ml, and a teaspoon contains 5 ml. Okay, so we have our mise en place for the first base recipe from King Arthur. So I have the ingredients for the full batch up there, but remember I'm doing half batch, and I'm going to do 4 times this recipe. Half batch times 4, 1 with all-purpose flour, 1 with cake flour, one with apples and one with blueberries. And then I'm going to do a Betty Crocker blueberry recipe, a Martha White lemon poppy, and the others I just decided not to use because we already got the result of a box mix. And then I decided to do two old recipes from my recipe books just to see what other recipes are yielding. And one I used some alternate flours. The other I just used all-purpose with pecans and raisins, but I'll show you up ahead. So the idea is to thoroughly beat my butter and sugar just to have them fluffy and softer, then add the eggs, and later I add the vanilla, the sour cream, and mostly just observe how what kind of a reaction I get. You must remember that there's a muffin method to make muffins where you use oil and mix the liquid ingredients on the side and the dry ingredients on the side and mix them together. That is the basic muffin method. But here, because we're using butter, we have to beat it. But I noticed that as I was beating this, I got a very flat muffin top, and that is not ideal. So with muffins, you don't want to overbeat. So after this, I will just beat the basic ingredients but not the flour part. Although for the next part where I'm using cake flour, I decided to use a hand mixer, and this is all just to experiment and see what yields better. Now, you know what they say, it's only a fool who would do the same thing twice, especially if you're not getting or you're not being successful. So what I did with this recipe was adding oil there just to see where we could be going wrong, because we're getting a very hard texture on our muffin. So I decided to use, I had thought of a quarter cup of oil. Then as I was adding, I decided it's too much. So I added only half of that. Now remember, I'm using a whisk beater here. And that is what convinced me that you shouldn't mix all the way with a whisk, yeah? So I didn't beat for long, but I decided not to do that to the end. At this point, I decided to use this flat beater, and only for a short time, and then take it out. I love how this beats because it beats and scrapes, so that way you get a more incorporated butter. But having done this, I will tell you the result I got. I will tell you what I loved about this recipe, but that beating already is a no, okay? So I'm going to use to measure with my ice cream scoop. This gives you a quarter cup yield, that's 4 tablespoons. So I decided, since I wanted something bigger, right? Because we are looking for a recipe that is sizable, worth $2. I will add just half of this, because if I do 2, it will be too much, yeah? So after doing 1.5, I noticed only a little remainder, and I decided to add that with teaspoon. So about a teaspoon on each also. This is all just to get the right size. And I can tell you that the only reason why this was contained in that paper was because we were using a bigger cupcake or a bigger tin, yeah, bigger muffin tin. So this would comfortably take about 1.5. Okay, the reason why we didn't get too much of a rise again is because of using the KitchenAid. KitchenAid is too powerful a tool, especially on muffins. You need to use either hand mixing or just beat the liquids or the softer ingredients, and then as you add the flour, you should fold in with a spatula, which will be easier on the mixture. You don't want to whip too much because you will lose the texture of the muffins. It would be okay if you're doing a cupcake, but with muffins, you don't want to overbeat. All right. I did tap or bang it on the counter just to get rid of most of that air. It's not necessary with muffins. And I'm going to let it rest as my oven heats. I'm using 350 degrees on for 24 minutes is the best time we got. And then we'll see if I have to add some more. Onto the cake flour mixture now. I've added the sugar and the butter into the bowl, and I'm going to use the hand mixer. I can't tell you, but it's amazing how just using something different will make a difference in your cake yield. But we are all going to learn today. I'm going to tell you something about this. It's not a discovery. I know a lot of you already know. There are people who don't even use any kind of machine when doing muffins. They'll just mix the liquids together and mix the dry ingredients and then just bring them together, make a batter like that of a pancake, you know, leaving it quite lumpy. But because we are using butter again, it's very tricky when you do that. We are adding our eggs in thirds, mixing thoroughly after every addition, and then we'll add our vanilla and sour cream. Then we add in the dry ingredients, and then I'll show you the yield for both of these cakes. Remember, this is the base mix, and so I've done it exactly the same, just using two different kitchen tools. All right. Perfect. We now scrape our bowl and add the same amount that we added on the first base mix onto these cupcake liners. I have 6. I'm going to squeeze in the most I can, but this was a big batch, and I believe it's because we did not whip it down. Okay, so I used the same ingredients, but because the KitchenAid was so powerful, it was weighing down the ingredients, in that once you add into the tin, you get a lesser yield because all the air has been whipped out. Okay, so I had a little extra with this mixture, and so I was able to make 2 more muffins. So we typically add sanding sugar on muffins, but I didn't have that, so I added only my favorite ingredient for most of these things, that is shredded coconut. Yeah, the oven is ready. We are adding in the first mixture, which is all-purpose flour. Yeah, and we're going to let that bake for 9 or for about 12 minutes, and then we will flip it around and see if it's getting even heat. Yeah, so it's a summer day. It's beautiful, but we have to do our cleaning, and remember just how clean this kitchen is after doing these dishes, because we are going to have a storm up in here as we continue to bake more. Our muffins are ready. The caramelization is perfect, but we have no muffin top. Okay, that is actually important to get. I know it's not the end of the world if you don't get it, but it's important. It shows you a good yield of a muffin, because we don't get to frost muffins. We want to see a beautiful thing, you know. And now this is the cake flour batch. I'm doing 6 first, and then the 2 I will do on a different tray. Again, we are baking this for 24 minutes. That's what I'm aiming at. So 12 minutes on each side, because I flip after 12. Checking the rise, because I noticed that on the second timing is when I achieve that muffin top rise, or the muffin rises more on the second flip. Okay, so I'm making some blueberries there. Those are for toppings for my blueberry batch. In the meantime, in between the base recipe, I'll be doing these muffin mixes. I'm starting with Martha White, and I'm starting with it because it's a simpler recipe. You just add half a cup of milk to that. The yield is not much, but I believe if you're going for mini muffins, like the tiny muffins you make in tiny muffin cups, then this is it. Turns out my teacher really liked this one. You're going to see the yield. I don't want to say much at this point, but at this point I was very disappointed because the yield was so little. I should have known because the packet is quite small, but I had my 6 cupcake liners set out, but I only used 5, and I was only using 1 scoop, that is a 1/4 cup. You see, so I decided not to add more and just remove the extra liner. So I made 5 out of this batch. I don't believe that even if it's an easy one to use, just adding milk, not much in ingredients, I don't believe this is what I would go for. Again, the flavor was a bit artificial to my taste, but we'll talk about it more. I'm starting it in the normal household oven. I'm baking those at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and now I'm using the Betty Crocker, and I'm just checking what it needs. I'll put the ingredients there on the screen, and they have this can in the box, the packet in the box. I think it's the cutest thing in life, and so I'm using a tin cutter or a can opener to open that, and then I'll drain off all the liquid. The bag of the mix is just like so, and so I'm cutting that and adding into my KitchenAid. I'm doing that because with these mixes you need to about 2 minutes of quick whipping, but you don't have to mix it thoroughly. You can leave it a bit lumpy. It's a very well researched mix. So is the Martha White. All these mixes, you know, a lot of work has gone into it, and you can imagine it's very cheap, but an addition of blueberries, I think it's very good value for your money, especially if this is the kind of thing you have time for. It's a quick, mix, and you have your muffins, right? But since we are a culinary school, and we want very quality products at the diner, we have to, consider doing some things from scratch. If they're not profitable, but we still want to sell, then we use the cake mixes, but there's nothing to learn there, you understand? So it's important for us to find that one recipe that will give us some profit, so that we don't sell, at a loss, because a lot of work goes into baking. Like this, it took a lot of time, especially because of the filming. This batch, I'm using the turnover cake containers. I wanted a very pretty looking muffin, and I wanted it to fill this container. So these are more narrow, and the cupcake liner is actually very tall. So I'm going to have slimmer muffins, but standing tall. I only got 6 from this batch. It was that ice cream scoop plus about a half. So then I used I made 2 with that jumbo cupcake liner on a regular tin. So I'm going to slide this into the oven as I flip the other ones. So both will be going at the same time, but these ones are done. The Martha White are, and that's the yield. You see, that's the second we are getting out of the oven, and it took about 17 minutes. I think that's a good time. I don't mind the top actually. So now we are starting the the Granny Smith apple cake recipe using the base mix from King Arthur. This called for some sugar, some cinnamon sugar, so I'm mixing that from scratch. I had to check out the recipe. Yeah, so it's 2 tablespoons of cinnamon and 1 cup of sugar. I need a 1/3 cup, so the rest is going into a container, at least so that I can have some cinnamon sugar waiting, and then a tablespoon of that will be topping, although I didn't use that much. So I actually need 1/8 that I'll be mixing into the batch. Now that is extra sugar and this is extra fruit, so we're just adding on to the ingredients, which makes it like we'll really have to cost this and see if it is worth the time and worth all the ingredients we are putting in, especially if we put them out and the seniors, we'll have to see their reaction. Yeah, so we'll do this again at the lab and see what muffin they like most, that they are willing to spare their $2 on. Okay, so I'm still using the KitchenAid, but I want to whip the sugar and butter together and all the liquid ingredients just to have them fluffy, and then I change to the flat beater. I've increased the speed in my video, so it may look like I'm using a lot of that KitchenAid force, but I'm not. I'm just beating for a very short time, and then I added my flour using the flat beater, still experimenting to see like what I saw with the first batch. Was it true? Is it the KitchenAid that ruined that muffin top experience? So now I'm folding in the grated apples with the cinnamon sugar, and I so far like what the texture is looking like. I thought, or I assumed it would be a very wet mixture, but it's not. They're just mixing so well together. I kind of like this, yeah, and I can imagine the moisture it will give to the muffin. So folding those together using a rubber spatula, not the KitchenAid anymore. Yeah, so obviously because of the fruit we got a higher yield. I was just going for 8. Yeah, consider this is the half batch, so 8 will give us a good 16. So maybe we didn't get much with the base mix because we didn't have fruit in it, but with fruit you yield more. Okay, so 1.5 into this, using that turnover cake or turnover container. Yeah, this is for making things like madeleines, different kind of madeleines than what we know. These are madeleines that you bake with using a pound cake mix or something like that, and then you turn them over, add jam and coconut flakes. It's beautiful. We are going to make it one of these days, and I'm adding just 1/8 of a spoon, so 1/2 of a 1/4 teaspoon of the sugar. I don't want to add too much. So these are the Betty Crocker butter, blueberry muffins. I love the yield. I know you do too. Yeah, I would totally go for that. And these are our cake flour muffins. We almost got a muffin top, but I think also I overmixed still using that hand blender. Either that or the cake flour makes the mixture a little bit too soft, so it doesn't really hold well. So that's why I'm guessing we didn't get the muffin top. Now these are our blueberry muffins. I had to grate a lemon so that I get the total or maximum flavor out of this. I mixed the lemon rind with the sugar, and you cannot believe the smell. You need to try this. The smell is so amazing. And of course, we'll get that flavor, that lemony blueberry flavor. These are trip, so you want to try. Now that I have seen a lot of the activity or the outcome, I don't mind using the kitchen aid, but I'm only blending for a few minutes. In fact, with this one, I just whipped the butter and sugar and then folded in my liquid ingredients, my flour, and then my blueberries. I'm so excited about this one. So it calls for 3 cups in the full batch. I added 1.5 cups of blueberry because I'm doing the half mixture. Remember, yeah, and I'm also using this cake tin because I want to compare these blueberry muffins with the Betty Crocker muffins, and I also want to see which liner, you know, makes them look pretty. So I'm using white and brown, but these were the last white I had. All right, so I'm going to do that, and like I said, we get more because of the adding the fruit, yeah. And then my boiled blueberries right here, I did not add anything else because we don't want extra sugar, right? No pectin because I'm not making a jam. So just this jammy looking blueberry boil, and I'm adding just half a teaspoon on top. This is just for extra beauty. Yeah, I didn't do that with the Betty Crocker mix because I wanted to see what the yield looks like, because that is the closest I knew I was going to get to the BJ's muffins, because they both use cake mixes, you understand? So with mine, of course, I'll make it more pretty. And then I added this liner, this particular liner on the regular cupcake tin, just to see how it works in that, and also one jumbo liner. Got 8 out of that mix. I'm taking out the apple muffins from the oven, and these were the extra apple muffins. Everything actually working out well. I'm adding the extra jammy mixture, blueberry mixture, into a container. This I will use in another, you know, batch, or have somebody add in their waffles or something. And look at this. Can you believe these are made from scratch? I'm excited. I like this. I like this yield. Got 8 out of that. The experiment also on the regular cupcake tin was to use a jumbo liner as well as this paper liner. Now comparing my Betty Crocker with the BJ's muffin. Sorry, I keep you know, mixing these words. But look at our yield so far. So now we've made about 36 cupcakes from our base mix. And then we've done 5 out of the Martha White mix, 6 out of the Betty Crocker mix. And I just want to see how everything looks. So we are going to put this in a cake, in a muffin tin with the BJ's muffin beside it. I'm checking. The last one you saw me touch there is a recipe from my book, from a recipe book. So it's the reason why I stopped making muffins. So this project came as a shock to me, and I was like, oh man, this is quite a challenge. Now I have to tell you, this is the first muffin that we used the base mix, the AP flour. It was the most delicious to me. But the oil and the overmixing kind of weighed it down. I can't complain about the temperature in the oven. I think it did really well and baked within the time we had experimented, which is 24 minutes. This muffin was lovely. I'm actually going to have it later. And now this here is our cake flour muffin. The same amount of flour, same amount of ingredients. It gave us a higher yield, as you can see. Do you know what the problem is with this one? The flavor. Nobody else seems to mind it, but I kind of taste the corn flour. And to me, it tastes like a preservative of some kind. But I'm beginning to think every time I have that, I find that taste in a product, it's actually corn flour, you know. And while it gets the flour softer, the cake flour softer, you know, very good in some products like a chiffon cake or an angel food cake, I wouldn't use it in muffins. You know, that's what I've decided. And this is our grated apple muffin, so moist inside. And there's a huge piece of apple here we have to remove in order to see the grain on this muffin. It really looks good. The rice was amazing. It had just beautiful moisture, and I know any person eating this would love to know that it contains apples. So much respect there, right? I have to cost this to see if it is worth $2. Because we don't want to increase the price, you understand. It's actually $1.99, yeah? But working with that. And now this is the most impressive looking muffin in this batch made from scratch. It's beautiful because of the added blueberry, the blueberry syrup. Look at this. The grain is amazing considering it's made from scratch. You can imagine the flour is as hard as it can be, right? Because of the much protein in regular wheat flour. But I love it so much. I think this is a good job. I love how the blueberries burst inside, so it looks more, you know, like it's full of moisture. I had, you know, all this for tasting. I really like it. I love the flavors inside. Yeah, so we have now to look at the Betty Crocker blueberry muffin and see how it compares to the BJ's. None of these made from scratch actually come close to the BJ's, because the BJ one is a cake mix, and you can imagine with the added you know, blueberries, it's full of moisture. And now this is a very firm. I got the muffin tops with this, yeah. This is the recipe from my old book, 365 Cakes and Puddings. It's almost like a cake with too much flour. The consistency is like that of the bread. It's a raisin and pecan. I think adding, you know, dry fruit in it stole most of the moisture. I used oil and milk. It still didn't do the trick. In the recipe, it says to just fold in the flour and let the mixture be lumpy. But you know what? It doesn't even get to that soft stage to be lumpy, because it's like too much flour for that recipe. This is the Betty Crocker blueberry muffin. The rice is amazing. And you know what? This has almost an exact crumb with the BJ's one. It also has a lot of moisture. It's tasty, but it tastes exactly like the BJ one, or very close to. I didn't add any sanding sugar on top, but like I said, you know, if you're gonna make a muffin, make it from scratch, unless you really love the cake mixed flavor, or like BJ's or Costco muffins. They taste great, really. They do. Yeah, it's just that there's something about a homemade product that is just amazing. Now I decided to keep this one because it was the best for me. I'm so glad you stuck with me on this project. I'm obviously going to watch so many more creators before I do my final project. But like I said, it's a very sensitive situation to take this kind of product to your teacher because the way commercial kitchens and school kitchens are built is so different. Like now I'm running the dishwasher for the second time. It's full. It will run for about an hour, yeah. between in an hour I could do so many other dishes, and that hand washing doesn't always guarantee a very, you know, good clean. A dishwasher at the workplace, or, you know, like in a commercial kitchen, will clean in a minute, I think. Yeah, it will clean and sanitize in a minute, and you can see how you know, that is taken care of without too much you know, human activity or involvement. So a lot of things are just kept sanitized. You know, there's just a higher degree of safety and sanitation. So if my teacher does risk her life and eat this and taste this, and even just to check the texture of the stuff I've made at home, it will be a great thing, because I'll have all this documented, and it will help us with our documentation. Also, I think I'll have more information in as I try out the same recipes in school. One thing I think I wouldn't compromise on is the oil. And like you saw, I was thinking of adding 1/4 cup of oil, but I felt it was too much. Yeah. Now remember, a quarter is just 3 tablespoons of anything. So I ended up adding an 1/8, which is 1.5 tablespoon, and I think it gave us a difference. Yeah, like there's a huge difference in the moisture amount, seeing as even the muffins we added fruit are not so much different from the base muffin or the base recipe. So I think what it would need, if you ask me, is the oil, an 1/8 cup oil in about half of that mixture. Yeah, because I was working with half, that yields 6. Now I'm surprised that with the Betty Crocker packet, we only got the same amount. We only got a yield of 6 using the same measurements or the same amount of butter. Yeah, other than that, if you're interested, I'll show you how to cost that. Come up with a better, you know, costing video, especially when I have a calculator, so you can get that sum right and see just how much we yield and the cost of it, and if we'll be able to find profit. As far as labor is concerned, making a batch of 36 from scratch, I don't think it's worth it, because that would be over an hour of labor plus production in the oven. So you can imagine, if you're costing everything, including electricity and the labor, I don't think we would be able to afford selling our muffin at $2 each. We sell at $1.99. Yeah, so this is so tasty. I thought the same about the base muffin recipe we made with the King Arthur AP flour in school. I wouldn't go for the cake flour at all. So let's just look at these cupcakes first. These are what we made in school. The cake, the AP flour, that was the rice, and it was so biscuity, and this was the cake flour. And this is the analysis we did. We really cut up these muffins and tasted with the teacher. I didn't show, but there are some muffins also I made with some buckwheat flour. So from our AP flour in the house, I got 36 plus 12, which is 48 cupcakes. Yeah, so let's pack. I'm lining my basket with the huge black Soviet or paper towels. So this is important for when you want to you know, carry muffins. They just look so cute. A lot of people gift muffins with a basket. It's just a very good habit. And the good news is that it turns out that you can bring products, homemade products, to school for your friends, and a good discussion with the teacher. What we cannot do is sell any of these homemade products because our sanitation levels, our hygiene levels have to be monitored, yeah, in class. So it's funny, but even as students here, we have to wear gloves all the time when we are cooking, just to make sure that all these things are safe for our customers, who are mostly seniors and teenage kids. But anyone can actually just pop in to our diner to buy a lunch, yeah. So anyway, that's the good news, that we can taste this. It's actually considered friendly. Yeah, so I'm lining my basket. Of course, I had to take extra precautions, make it pretty, make it look nice, and also for us here on YouTube, just to show a nice way to carry our product. Yeah, so I'm quickly going to pack all the muffins I need, both the from scratch and from cake mix, and the extra I did from my book recipes, and then so I'll have them ready for our analysis. I want an honest reaction. Aweka chini. You want milk? Baba's like, Meza, you want milk? But milk imeharibika. Kunywa hiyo Xavier. Stitch, kwa nini?
Zinaenda kucheza. Cinnamon.
With apple.
Coconut.
Just the top. So only Mike could taste the muffins because he's the one who was willing. They are going out for a game, and so they really couldn't eat before going, but he really liked the apple one. Anyway, I'll see you on the next. Bye-bye.